What is the greatest relief, physical or psychological, you have ever felt? I had to hold in a massive shit for 8 hours because I was somewhere with no toilets around. You know that massive it pokes out of your asshole every few seconds and you have to suck it back in. I was constantly shaking and sweating. At one point I even considered suicide. Doing my final A-level exam and coming home at lunchtime knowing I had the entire summer off, and then university, new life etc. Amazing how much hope I had back then. I hurt my back a year ago. The muscle went into spasm that hurt so bad it felt like I was being repeatedly stabbed in the back. After sitting in agony in the hospital for an hour, I received a shot of a painkiller and muscle relaxer. Within minutes, I was pain-free. It was the most profound sense of relief I have ever felt. When I have a cold then my nostrils clear up and I can breathe. When I separated from the military, the feeling of freedom got me so damn high, and I haven't felt like that since. Life is good. Learning that a loved one's cancer was in remission. My wife was running the Boston Marathon when the bombs went off. I was working and had no idea where she was or if she was okay for hours. Finally hearing her voice was the greatest relief of my life. Whenever I got my dislocated shoulder back into place, I needed surgery and couldn't get it, thanks US healthcare. My shoulder popped out at least once a month for years until I got better insurance and got it fixed. The minute the spinal took effect during my emergency C-section, the pain just stopped and my mind went quiet. I had an extremely difficult and painful pregnancy. The only thing better was holding my healthy newborn in my arms and seeing that all of my pain was for a reason. My kid got sick and there were no answers except medical professionals kept assuming it was a particular disease that would kill my kid by the time they were 45 if they were lucky. The greatest relief was getting the phone call that let us know that my kid doesn't have that particular subtype of disease but a different one. I think we cried from relief for about 20 minutes just sitting there hugging each other. It's still tough going but at least there's more of a chance at a semi-normal life. Spent a week doing mostly physical labor in mud and rain for a military exercise. Worked through a bad fever during and was constantly drenched. That moment when I got back to my place, stripped down out of my mud-caked clothing, and into a steaming hot shower with an iced cold beer. Passing that motherfucker of a kidney stone. A few years ago, I had a bug bite on my foot which caused some kind of crazy autoimmune response in my body. Over the course of 2 days, the bug bite quickly went from being a small itchy bump, to being a big red spot, to most of my foot being bright red, to both of my feet becoming bright red, swollen, and covered in blisters. It felt like my feet were literally on fire. Probably some of the most intense pain I can ever remember in my life, and I was unable to sleep the entire time it was going on, so I was awake for over 2 days. Anywho, I eventually went to the ER and they got me hooked up to N4 and after looking at my feet and confirming I wasn't some kind of junkie drug addict, gave me some 4-hydromorphone, Dilaudid. Shortly thereafter I felt so much relief and just fell asleep in the ER ward. The phone call telling me the cancer scans were negative. Found my dog after losing him. The relief when I realized that my pet, who was missing for 3 days, I thought she was dead, showed up in my neighbor's yard. Probably when I passed my written test for my permit on my first try I thought I failed but I did the minimum grade. Being told I was cancer-free, smiley face, just made redundant, found a job but the pay was nowhere near. Moved house 6 months prior and our eldest was still young, so costs massive everywhere. Things were bad, savings were running out fast, and there was no clear way out. Then out of the blue I got a parking ticket, £100, my heart sank not sure what I was going to do. Quickly worked out that it was a car park I drove in and out, didn't even stop. Must have been caught by the automatic camera. The ticket wasn't warranted. I'm not very expressive but the day I got it cancelled, I actually punched the air. Such a relief. This is a dark place for me to go but you asked the question and this is the memory that springs to mind. Brief context, I was in a long relationship, engaged, childhood sweetheart, together 16 years and she cheated. Thus began a 3-year period of pretending everything was fine but I really wasn't. I was on a lot of steroids and even more cocaine snorting up 6 grams a day at my peak and spending my time either chasing women, sleeping with randoms or wanking to porn for hours. Heavily into a binge and after staying up for 3 days and deep into night number 4, I was sat up doing blow as per and I was struggling to stay awake. I remember boshing a line and then tilting my head back, closing my eyes and feeling the absolute relief of letting go and falling asleep. My mom dying and the relief after crying a lot. I got in some legal trouble when I was a teenager that affected my ability to get jobs, housing, even volunteer. After 10 years of poverty, I was able to afford to apply for expungement after I inherited some money from a dead family member. After I won my case, I just couldn't stop crying happy tears because it felt like this huge weight was gone. The state government wrongfully/illegally withdrew around $30,000 from my checking account. Luckily, after I raised hell with the person responsible at the state for wrongfully processing this, they returned the money in about a week. I was so relieved it only took a week to resolve. Lessons learned. The banks are beholden to the government even when the government is illegitimate. Never give your bank account number to a government agency. Leaving my ex-husband. Waking up to my real life and realizing the nightmares were a fiction worked up by my asshole brain. Getting out of an abusive relationship, it was less about the bloody noses and stones being thrown at me and more of a relief not having to deal with her mentally anymore lol. The psychological relief far outweighed the physical. Honestly, stepping back from wanting to commit suicide was the biggest relief. It was hard to ask for help, but it felt like a huge weight lifted when I did. Getting high for the first time. Literally all of my stresses and inhibitions, back pain, and constant overthinking dissolved. My mind was silent. Pain was ignored and I wasn't so fixated on my shortcomings. Felt like I had the mind of a kid again. Felt really nostalgic but retained all my experiences. I was under the impression that weed never worked for me in the random occasions I had smoked it. Turns out I was just smoking it wrong, holding the smoke in my mouth and not actually inhaling it. No one really properly explained how to smoke it, and I never cared to look it up cause I never intended on creating a reoccurring bill to smoke a plant. Lo and behold, here I am making my own edibles to get high each weekend. Also finding out that I didn't have HIV after a big scare. Many days before my graduation, I started losing hope because despite the fact that I was doing well in my unimportant classes, I was failing the important classes, but luckily, I fixed those grades as quickly as I could, and I ended up graduating. That just felt like such a great escape. I had a really bad lymphatic infection around 3 years ago. With my family being low on money and me being underage, I kind of just pulled through until it got so bad I needed to go to the doctor. I was on several medications because the pain was nauseating to say the least. I became temporarily deaf in 1 year, and even in public with lots of people around, conversations were muffled. My throat hurt, pressing my lymph nodes felt like my throat and ears were getting stabbed. The antibiotics by some miracle cleared everything, but now I have crappier hearing, but oh well. Anything to do with the head sucks, from colds to ear infections to headaches. I had surgery where they stuck tubes down my nose. When they removed them it felt incredible. After genetic testing finding out I don't carry the cancer gene which killed my mother and gave my sister breast cancer at 32 years old. 10 years later after a double mastectomy she is fine. The most important thing is that I can't pass it into my kids. I stopped having a headache for 5 minutes, best feeling ever. 3 a.m. water. There have been times I've been out in the woods super uncomfortable or weirded out for various reasons, which is saying something because I was practically raised in the forest. That moment of getting back to the old homestead and civilization is always the best feeling. When my wife and I first found out we were expecting our second child, using a home pregnancy test, we went to the OBGYN to confirm. The ultrasound techs looked around for what felt like hours and couldn't find anything. As time went, it felt like the walls were closing in. I couldn't breathe and my heart was broken so badly. I had tunnel vision and felt like I was about to die or pass out. Then, finally, the tech zoomed into an area, started taking measurements and annotating. I knew what gestational sac meant from the annotation, and instantly knew they had found our baby. I imagine the feeling as being similar to finally getting your head above water to breathe when near drowning. The feeling of immense relief I felt was like nothing I have ever experienced, before or since. It was simultaneously one of the worst days and one of the best days I can remember. Doing DMT takes a massive weight off your shoulders. Losing my uncle to suicide. I used to work on a tugboat, and long story short, became very tired of all the time away from home, the stress of making sure I had everything ready when I left, and the long drive, starting at 1:32 am, and sleep deprivation. I would leave early Monday morning and be gone until the following Monday. The first Sunday evening where I wasn't rushing to get packed and get my house squared away for the week was the best feeling in the world. I took my mom, aunt, and uncle on a boat ride to a waterfront bar, and just hung out, had a couple drinks and listened to the band. Then headed home, grabbed some food for my girlfriend and I when she got home from work, and just relaxed on the couch. No stressing about the next week, no being depressed about what I'll miss when I'm gone. It was great.